Associate Editor of EPR Magazine, and we welcome you to the Power Talk on Modernizing T&D Infrastructure, a reality check. Investments in the power transmission and distribution systems have prospered on the back of the ever-growing need to increase grid's performance and stability. Grid operators in the transmission and distribution market are increasingly expanding their stakes in the modern grid technologies, especially for smart grids. Increasing government's focus on replacing an aging infrastructure is also enriching the outlook of transmission and distribution market. Moreover, growing spendings on the new technologies in the electric power transmission is attracting loads of opportunities found the analysts in the global transmission and distribution market. Today, on this note, you're going to be part of a live power talk on modernizing T&D infrastructure, a reality check, where transmission and distribution experts will discuss the need to increase modernization in the power infrastructure through technology and advanced power systems. We will also examine the possibilities and the benefits of having an RE-integrated T&D system. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and privilege for me to introduce you to our today's distinguished speakers. Mr. Raghavendra Mirji, Senior Vice President and Head at Electricals and Electronic Division for Godrej and Boyce. Mr. H.C. Sharma, Chief for Business Development, Contracts, Stores and Technical Services at Tata Power-DDL. Mr. Sharma, your submission gave us a brief about the present situation of our T&D infrastructure. So my question to you is, how are the power generation companies balancing the demand and supply mismatch for power distribution, which is caused by the increasing interest, urbanization and modernization in the power infrastructure?
The onus of balancing it is not with the generation companies. Basically, it is the responsibility of the distribution company who has to estimate the power requirement and then whether forecast it that every 15 minutes of interval, how much power they are going to consume. And that particular the scheduling, we call it scheduling is done on day-ahead basis, and that is shared with the power company that okay, this is how we are going to draw from you. So basically that they have their own restrictions, like how much time to they will take in ramping up or ramping down. So those are already, like initially from the very beginning, those are known that what type of plant it is. So it is basically not the generation company, it is basically the distribution company who has to balance all this, because even like solar, you don't have anything to say to the solar because of renewable energy. You have to give them the priority. Their production can reduce, their production can go up depending upon the weather condition. Plant can go down, go up. But all those uncertainty which are coming from the system, weather or the prosumers, those are to be taken care of by the distribution, not anybody else.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma, for addressing it and sharing your views. Mr. Mirji, you have been leading this business area for more than a decade now. So how do you analyze this gap and how are we dealing with them?
The same question that you asked to Mr. Sharma. Well, yes. I think Mr. Sharma did mention about the primary responsibility of the role, which is with the distribution, which he rightly says. What maybe a couple of things that I need to add. Now today, the power companies also have to be equipped with quick response. Now you have asked a question that how do we handle a situation if a peak load suddenly comes in? Then how do we really handle the situation? Now one is, yes, there are a set of things that distribution company will manage, which Mr. Sharma also had talked about. But there is the planning responsibilities with the state load dispatch centers, SLDC, or at the regional level, it says, regional load dispatch centers, RLDC, and at the national level also. Now, what is required? Now, the system needs to be robust in terms of giving information to the generation companies to ramp up or to balance the generation in a shorter time. Now, while the responsibility remains at the demand side and at the planning side, the generation company also need to equip with faster response. Then how do we really, if in a shorter period, if I need to ramp up the generation, then how do really I need to equip with that? So that talks about the entire back-end planning from the Genco companies in terms of technicalities, in terms of resources, in terms of controls and other things needs to be done, and balancing also needs to be done. Mr. Sharma also talked about the renewables. Now, how do we really control the renewables, and priority needs to be done. Now, I think government understanding this very clear criticality, where the renewables really are very difficult thing to handle the grid stability, especially in the context of demand supply, have come up with the idea of providing separate renewable management center. So REMC, so they have come up with this idea, which is again under the National Load Dispatch Centers structure. So they do have a separate now planning structures to handle the renewables. So again, part of the Genco. It may not be a conventional generating company that I am referring to. If it comes to then renewable, then here also, this needs to be done in terms of, quick planning or maybe the balancing of demand and supply in a better way. That's what my view.
Thank you for your observation, Mr. Milji. You also spoke about RE-integrated power generation, Mr. Milji.
Yeah.
So I would like to understand this, that how can this integrated RE power system will assist us in achieving the power for all idea that the government is aiming at through T&D efficiency?
So if you see, there are 2-3 things. One, where is the need for the RE? First of all, we need to understand the one. Now, I can link that to 24/7 very well. Now, India is growing at about around 7% CAGR as far as generation is concerned, and we have already reached at about 395 plus gigawatt of generation. You have seen now, if the idea is to go to 450 gigawatt, 600 gigawatt, we are talking about by 2030 or so, because your per capita consumption today is just about 1400 kilowatt hour compared to even in average world is about 4,500 or so. So the urbanization, the greater need of the EVs, the railway electrifications, the last mile connectivity that will pull the power. These are all the pull the growth of consumption. Now, how do we really balance this? Today we are in power generation we are surplus. Today we are having a transmission side constraints to reach out to 24/7. But tomorrow we will reach surely a situation where the peak power will reach to that extent. Then addition of power becomes inevitable. Then how do we go? The traditional coal plants or other plants will have huge issues. One, the very high capex. Second, the timelines. If you start today, it will take about 4 years, 5 years. The availability of the coal, and plus the environment consciousness that the world is talking about not using a fossil fuel. And these are all have talked in one voice that there is a greater need of greener energy. So greener energy, renewable, rather solar is the best thing to see, because it's almost free. Yes, there are other costs attached to it, but then I'm talking about this. So hence, integrating renewable power, it will be in the interest of the country, one, to achieve the greener energy goal that we have said. We are also signatory to Paris Accord, and we are talking about reducing the carbon footprint in a big way. So that's one. Secondly, over the period, the cost of electricity is also going to come down because of the integration of the RE power. The third, we are also eliminating the environmentally harmful coal-fired, the generations, over a period of time. We are slowly curtailing it out. So hence, the integration of RE to the grid becomes more of I would say, a greater need today than anything else. So this has to be done. Yes, we do have challenges. We do have challenges at the DISCOM level. We do have challenges in maintaining the stability of the grid. I'm sure the policies, regulatory, things, and the technology will together really address these issues over a period of time, and then it can be seamlessly integrated.
Thank you so much, Mr. Milji, for your observation and pointing it out very Detail. Do you think our present surplus power status of power is empowering? Especially looking at the per capita consumption of power, which is much lesser than the developed countries.
Yeah, as I said, it's clearly empowering. But the issue, as I said, issue today in the planning, we went ahead with the capacity augmentation and increasing the capacity of the generation. Traditionally, this is done because the generation time, to install a generation, it takes a lot of time because of the plant machineries, equipments, and many things. Versus the transmission system, which will take a lesser time to put up. So that's the reason the focus was more on building the capacity of a generation over a period of time. Now, but what happened was clearly the pace in which the infrastructure supposed to be catching up the generation has not happened. There are 2-3 reasons. One, we didn't have the last mile connectivity also. Last 7-8 years we have electrified more than 40,000-50,000 villages, and even in urban power infrastructure was very, very poor. That also had to be augmented. That also had to be changed to a larger extent. So that's the reason. Yes, generation is clearly a big empowerment, as I said, but there are two different. The consumption is very poor, has nothing to do with the generation thing. Now the consumption is very poor compared to the developed worlds because it straight away relates to the economy. It straight away relates to the other issues that I talked about, the infrastructure spending, the urbanization, the more electrification of systems, the manufacturing. Now if you see the last 4-5 years, the GDP is growing at a very healthy rate compared to the other developed nations or developing nations. That's the reason I am very strong believer that this is one of the big driver. The low per capita is one of the big driver in the years to come to improve the demand for the electricity in a big way.
Thank you, Mr. Virji, for addressing that. Mr. Sharma, please, we would like to know what you think about it.
See, surplus power as such, not that way that it is empowering, but definitely the better infrastructure and then power availability, the capacity availability. And definitely when the electricity availability is more, your industries are flourishing, your commercial things are flourishing, and it goes for a better planning, faster implementation of the things. So definitely that way it is really empowering. And one more advantage which we have right now is that solar is coming very, very fast, and it has a very low gestation period, so it comes in very fast in a period of 6 months, 8 months to 1 year many times. So that is definitely helping India to move further. There's no doubt about it.
Well, you rightly mentioned, sir, that solar is coming in a big way to aid the Indian power sector.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
coming. Yes.
Mr. Mirji, one of our delegates, Mr. Ashish Taneja, wants to know if you can touch upon the key RE integration challenges.
So the typical RE integration lies in the very much nature of the generation of the RE itself, because it is it is not, I would say, constant. The solar, if you take, we have more power or the better generation in the mornings until afternoon it peaks, and then in the evening it goes down, and in the night it is not available. Then there are days where cloudy or monsoon or other months, the power availability is also a question mark. Now this is a very big challenge as far as grid stability is concerned, because you cannot really have a sustained or a constant power pushing from the coast to the grid, and then this needs to be then managed, how this needs to be done. So integration. Then second thing is also there are harmonics which are very different, and then technically it's a challenge. The inverters are more reactive in nature. In that sense, the quality of the power is also not comparable one-to-one with respect to the conventional thermal power things. So these are all the technical challenges. Now the grid stability, one of the major issue is this, that how do we in the morning you will give me more power, in the night you will not give anything, then suddenly then I'll have to go somewhere else to pull the power. These are the classic issues, technical issues, which are a big, I would say, a problem for integration. That's one. Second thing, there is also a commercial aspect. Now Discom is also dealing with, net metering policy has come up, but still there are a lot of issues in many states. Some states have discouraged, some states are not honoring. All sorts of issues are happening. That's because commercial viability of preferring RE versus their power purchase agreements with the Gencos. Based on that, they're also taking their key customers at a higher prices. But then if they allow the net metering, then in the peak period or in the period where they would have earned better is also taking a hit. Now there is a commercial aspect also to the integration. So both the technical and the commercial aspects are actually becoming kind of a barriers, or kind of I don't say because of this things are not happening or they're stopping it, but definitely these are the issues which I still see. There is no seamless integration of renewable energy, and government is still working on this. There are policy things to be coming up. Yes, another way the government has also addressed bringing a complete separate corridor, transmission corridor, to evacuate power from the solar power parks and then give it to the users, connect the users at the separate level. So some of these aspects probably will address this. But these are the critical issues for the integration. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise views, Mr. Mijit. I would like to request you to make a closing statement for this session today.
First of all, I thank EPR for giving me this opportunity, and I hope the views expressed in this webinar are useful to the participants. And yes, it's a very limited discussion given a time constraint and things that I thought I covered it to an extent what is required to be covered. Coming to the topic itself, I think it's a very, very relevant topic today. The smart grid we have been talking, as I said, India needs to move forward in terms of realizing the IT strength that it has on other fields. So we are the leaders when it comes to softwares, then IT, the mobile users, the internet users. Today in India, nowhere we are actually behind. When it comes to now power sector, digitization has to now actually happen very fast. And then probably it took some time. Then I am very hopeful that the coming 3-4 years or 5 years, things will move much faster. And very soon we will realize smart meters everywhere and much more empowerment at the customer hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Murji. That was very enlightening statement for us, especially looking at the present scenario and the growth of our Indian power sector, with RE-integration coming into the picture in a big way. Thank you, delegates and panelists, for sharing your valuable thoughts and your views, and for your time for today's discussion on Modernizing T&D Infrastructure, a reality check. We hope you all have enjoyed this session. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Raghavendra Mirji and Mr. H.C. Sharma, for being with us today. I would also like to thank our editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking this initiative. To get more updates from EPR Magazine, you can follow our social media pages. Also, our mobile applications are available at Google Play and App Store for enhanced rating. With this, we would like to announce the closing of our today's session. I request you all to stay tuned with us for more such sessions. Until then, thank you, goodbye, and take care, everyone.